Welcome back to the Unstuck Movement, True Testimonies of Breakthrough. I am your host, Rob Z. Today we have the wonderful and amazing Rhonda Britten with us on this platform. And Robin, Rhonda, before I even jump into anything about you, I want to ask you a question just to get to know you better, to add value to our audience. You know, I love quotes that we live by. And one of the quotes that you live by, you said, and this is from you yourself, there is nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. What a quote. And, you know, so many of us, so many people in the world today think there is something wrong with them and they need to go find help for that thing and they need to fix that thing that's wrong with them. If we can boil it down to fear, that's amazing. So what do you mean by that? And how do you apply that to your own life?
Well, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear is seriously a fact, because every problem that most people think they have, right? So it's, I'm overwhelmed, I procrastinate. We're talking about these emotional fears. I'm overwhelmed, I procrastinate, I blame, I beat myself up. If I only could get going, why am I perfectionist? I'm scared of being judged. I failed this, I'll never make up for that. All of this conversation, all of these false beliefs are stemming from fear. You don't get overwhelmed unless you have fear. You don't procrastinate unless you have fear. You don't beat yourself up unless you have fear. You don't stall unless you have fear. You don't people please if you don't have fear, right? We label it other things like, well, I learned how to do this because, or it's the right thing to do because I was told. You know, we have all these stories that we use to justify our behavior that we, by the way, would like to change. Instead, it's really because fear is motivating that behavior, that thought, that body sensation, etc. So once you start looking at your quote unquote problems, the things you'd like to quote unquote fix, as just symptoms and what I call them fear responses to that thing called core fear, your core fear, then it's a game changer, because it's no longer you're the problem. No, you just don't have the skill or the awareness or the tool to help you get underneath it so you can actually move forward in the way that your soul deems fit.
I love that. Beautiful way to start this. I love the fact that your platform is Fearless Living. They can check out fearlessliving.org to find out more. But I love this conversation, this topic. It's so important, so near and dear to my heart. So we're going to dive in further. But first, before we go there, this is the platform for helping you find breakthrough in your life. This is the Unstuck movement. So whether it's in your life or your business, right? If you're stuck somewhere, you need breakthrough. So I bring people on this platform who have real testimonies, real life testimonies of finding those breakthroughs to give you an example that it's possible for you, but also to give you a roadmap for your life also. This platform is brought to you by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. And a quick reminder, if you want to become the go-to authority, the expert in your field, in your space, you want to leave a lasting impact on people's lives, I would love for you to check out our Pro Podcaster Academy at robzwentz.com. Now, Rhonda with us today is an Emmy Award-winner, 4-time bestselling author, and founder of the Fearless Living Institute. She has inspired millions worldwide, a pioneer in life coaching, empowering people to overcome fear and embracing their potential. I'm curious how you would answer this question, Rhonda. At the basis of all of our emotions, I've heard this before, and I tend to believe this, they tend to boil down to fear or love. Would you agree with that? Two general emotions that cover everything?
I would say yes, and I just have a little tweak about that, because I do believe it's fear or love. Yet the challenge is that many people actually, the definition of their love or what love is to them is actually based in fear. So when we think about love, so many people are that unselfish, i.e., people pleaser, afraid to have a voice, disempower themselves, thinking that that's humility, etc. So instead, we want to actually learn what true love is, and love, what we're talking about, fear versus love, is Do you love yourself as much as you want love from others? Are you willing to love yourself more than being admired, respected, or desired by another? Are you even included in your equations for your decisions? Because so many of us leave ourselves behind, and we think we make decisions or make choices based on what we think is the right thing to do, based on some circumstance or some some goal in the sky, or somebody told us we should, or we listen to somebody else instead of our own wisdom. So yes, fear or love, yes. And what's your definition of love? Is it based in fear or is it based in freedom?
If you have a definition of love based in freedom, what is that definition? What does that look like?
It really is about including yourself. So many people think of love as outward, like I give love. And the cost of giving love is receiving love. And so is your capacity and your willingness to receive love just as great as your willingness to give love? And then, does giving love include self-sacrifice? And again, I'm not saying we don't self-sacrifice. Of course we do. For anything that we deem worthwhile, of course there's a component of self-sacrifice. Yet, for many people, and I've seen them in my life over and over again, and my clients over and over again, they're sacrificing themselves for nothing grand or noble, but just because they're scared to speak up, scared to have a voice, scared to say what they want, unsure how to say it. Because a lot of times it's, I'm willing to say it, but I just don't know how, which keeps me shut down, which keeps me stuck. So, are we willing to learn the skills and the tools in order to do the thing that we say we want to do? So loving yourself means, and loving others includes receiving love from others and having the willingness to believe that love is real and true. And again, most people brush that love off. So too many of us brush that love off. And so, so we want to give and receive love to ourselves and to others. And of course, the great love of the great divine.
Absolutely. You're saying about including yourself in those decisions, right? So whenever we are trying to be loving towards ourselves and towards others, are we including ourselves in those decisions? And what does it look like to include ourselves in those decisions? Because I think, when these kind of topics are brought up, it's something that might be easy to say, but for a lot of people, it's really hard to even grasp the concept.
That's right. It is. It's really hard to grasp because we're talking about splitting hairs, right? It's like, okay, so, the holidays, let's say the holidays are here, and, you really don't want to do the thing you've always done because you don't feel seen wherever you're going for that holiday dinner, right? You don't feel seen, you don't feel appreciated, but there you are, still making the casserole, still going with a smile, right? Well, It's not about not going. You can go, but admit to yourself that you need something different. So is it that you need something different afterwards, before? Does it mean that you don't want to make the casserole? What does it really mean? What do you really want? So usually what we do is we just complain about something, or we, hate something, or we're bothered by something, or we say, I wish I didn't have to do that. But we never actually ask ourselves, what is it that we do want? If we said, like, look, I'm going to go to my parents, or I'm going to go to my cousins for Christmas, no matter what, or the holidays, no matter what, I'm going to do it. Okay, so you're going to still go, but what do you need to change inside that environment? How do you need to change your attitude? How do you need to change your behavior? How do you need to change how you show up? What do you need to change in what you wear or what you say? Like, what needs to change in order for you to feel that you're being loving to yourself, as well as showing people the true you even more, so they can actually love you more authentically and more true? And most of us just go into black and white thinking and go, well, I got to go and I got to suck it up, or I don't go. Well, there's a third way. It's called the gray way, right? It's like living in the gray, living in the paradox of, I can go, but I'm going to speak up, or I'm not, or I'm going to tell Aunt Sally, no, thank you, or I'm going to not sit next to Uncle Sam, right? So just be aware of asking yourself what your needs are. What do you need? And how can you get those needs met? Most of us don't even bother asking that question of what our needs are. Most of us don't even bother asking, what do we want to be different at grandma's? Don't even ask it, because it's just black and white.
It's really good too, because the holidays are a great example, because you're going back home most likely, right. And so home is like, that's where a lot of the problems started for everybody. I think everybody's trigger city, and it can be varying levels of degrees of, this is not good for me, right? So it's interesting because you go back into a mode, like you said, of maybe you were never able to speak up before at home. You were never able to like say who you were or say the thing that needed to be said, the elephant in the room, the bold statement that needs to be said, like shutting somebody down or telling somebody no, right? Because when you go back to home, you go back to being a kid and all those kid things come back up. And we run away from that most of our life, right? We run away from those things and try to like do a bunch of things to disguise that, to make ourselves pretend like it's not even there anymore.
That's right.
But it always comes back up. So I'm curious for you yourself, what is going home for the holidays like for you? Who do you need to show up as? And who did you used to show up as?
Well, for me, my parents, left this earth when I was younger. But that doesn't matter because, for many years, 20 plus years, I would go to one of my sister's homes. And my sisters, I was the middle deprived child. My younger sister was still the spoiled little kid. And my older sister was the bossy mom, right? So we all fell into our roles. And then as we got older and kids started showing up, marriages started showing up, we stayed in those roles. And so I remember when I started expressing myself truly, when I started loving myself, when I started being quote unquote fearless, when I started becoming a coach and living fearless living, I showed up very differently. And I was petrified at first, right? Would I be rejected? Would they make fun of me? Because my two brother-in-laws, it's part of the habit of Thanksgiving and Christmas is to tease Rhonda, right? So, what was going to happen? And I really got myself centered and I practiced. That's the other thing people don't do is, I would say probably 50% of my private coaching sessions, we're practicing dialogue. We're practicing scripts. We're practicing how to say what we're going to say. So I practiced. I got really clear where look back at the Christmas and Thanksgivings from the last 5 years and went, okay, where were my points where I wanted to run out or where I lost it or where I got upset or where I felt hurt, right? Where I felt like you don't get me, where I felt, like a baby, et cetera. And I played those out and practiced. What would I say? What would I say in those moments now? And there are some very simple things that you can say just in the beginning. So if somebody teases you like my brother-in-laws do, I can take a little teasing, but sometimes they get a little too, right? They get a little too personal or too hurtful. And now I can simply say, wow, that hurt. Just saying that. Don't have to like say, you're so mean, right? You don't have to get in an argument. Just, but wow, that hurt. And do it as crystal clear with, just cut through the bullshit, excuse me, and just say that hurt. It's amazing how that stops people in their tracks. Having these little statements in your back pocket so that you don't have to move into victim mode of accepting the same behavior from everybody and showing up the same, because that's usually what our embarrassment is. Like, oh, I should have said something, right? But we didn't, right? I should have walked out, right? So we are now really clear. What do we need to say? What do we need to do? What are our sticking points? And I'm going to start practicing showing up as that person. Doesn't mean my heart wasn't beating the first time I did it. Doesn't mean I didn't stall a little bit, but then I did say it. And whenever I use that phrase, there's not been a time when somebody isn't dumbfounded, because again, I'm no longer playing that little game of who can tease Rhonda the most and make her cry, right? I take myself out and just call it what it is and be like, that hurt. Wow. Or I'll say something like, did you mean to say that to me? Did you mean to say that to me? Again, people are just like, what? And because I'm not mean and because I didn't say it in any hurtful way. And I just said, hey, did you mean that? There's nothing they have. So it stops the cycle. So these are the tools and skills that we need to develop if we want to stand for ourselves and take care of our own needs. We can't make our family change. We can't make our spouses change, partners change. We can't make them change. But we can actually learn the skills and tools in order to show up differently, to stand for who we want to be and who we want to practice being.
That's so good. And it's so true. I love that. It's really something that very timely episode for this podcast, being we're right close to Thanksgiving in 2024 and Christmas coming up. So an opportunity to practice it. How do you practice it in your day-to-day life, right? Because it's one thing to go into a situation like this where you kind of know the past, you know the pattern. So it's like, okay, I'm going to prepare myself. How do you apply it to daily life? Because these situations that might happen at home, right, trickle into everyday life at work. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, no matter what, you're running into these things and they could be playing out and you don't even realize it in your daily life.
Well,
so how do you prepare for that?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I've developed is something called the Wheel of Fear. And on the Wheel of Fear, it has 4 components. And one of the components is called fear responses. Okay. And fear responses are all those ways that you act out. You know, you cry at a drop of a hat, right? For people are like, oh, you're too sensitive, right? So if somebody says you're too sensitive, that just is like a dagger in your heart, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know what your fear responses are, or you start people pleasing. Oh God, I always give in to Aunt Sally, right? So you know what you do. We all know the behaviors we'd like to change about ourselves. I bet we know 80%, if not 100 of them, 100%. So what I'd invite you to do is start writing those down. Oh, when Aunt Sally says this to me, I always collapse. Or when my boss does this, or when anybody does anything, when somebody gives me a dirty look, I collapse inside, right? You know the ways you compromise yourself on a daily basis. And so I invite you to just actually stop and take a few minutes, if not 10, and write down all the ways that you get triggered. Start writing them down so that you go, oh, when somebody gives me a dirty look, what I deem a dirty look, I run. That's one of the things I do. Okay, got it. When somebody teases me too much, I get angry or I tease back. I used to tease back. And you know what? I could only take a little teasing and then I would tease back and think I was so clever and witty. And it always ended up costing me dearly, right? It ended up getting me in worse trouble, right? Because I thought I was being so clever and smart, right? So write down your fear responses. Write down all the things that you already know them. And then say to yourself, okay, what is my need here? What do I want to be different here? What would what would I want my response to be? And the first response might be, well, I want to tell them what I think. Okay, well, all right, that's nice, but that's actually probably not the one you're going to choose ultimately. But I understand you need to kind of say, well, I need to tell them what I think. Okay, all right, okay. Well, if you're going to tell them what you think, do you have the skill to do that? And do you have the words to do that? Because usually when we just say, you and I both know people that go, I'm just telling you the truth. It's like, yeah, really poorly. And you're activated and you're triggered. And I don't think you actually, I hope this isn't your real truth. I know it's your truth in the moment because you're mad, but is this really how you want to handle it? So it's not about going, I'm going to say what I need to say. Again, I want you to say what you need to say, but I want you to back that out and have some skill to do it. So then you don't become the problem, right? You're not the one that is now like, oh, that Rhonda, she's always spouting off her mouth, telling us the truth of what she has to say, because you look like the fool and the idiot, right? Because you're not doing it skillfully. And that's where most of us get into trouble, because when we're triggered, our skills and tools go out the window. We forget all of them, right? And one of the things I always tell my clients and my students is, if you go blank, because many of us freeze when we're in that situation, and you're able to, whether you can take a breath, whether you can run into the bathroom and, take out your note card with all of your sayings that you've come up with, the way that you're going to say things, you got to practice. And so in the beginning, you might freeze still and not be able to say what you prepared for, because you're just like, wait a minute, what? And you lost the moment, and that's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Give yourself some love. At least you knew what was happening this time. You knew what was happening. You didn't add to it, right? You didn't blame yourself. You didn't go, oh, I'm a horrible person. No, you saw it. You maybe couldn't respond yet. Give yourself some compassion. Give yourself some love. Give yourself some kindness. Go to that restroom. Take a minute if you can. Go to the bedroom, whatever you got to do, and take a second and go, okay, if I had to do that over again, I'm going to take out my notepad, because I have literally my clients write on note cards and put it in their wallet, purse, etc. Especially when you're going to an event like holidays, so that you remember what to say. And then you're going to remember, you're going to do it. Okay, so now let's see if it comes up again. Or maybe you're going to go to them afterwards and go, hey, when you said blah, 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 I got to tell you, that hurt. I just wanted you to know that didn't make me feel good. And then you go into silence. You don't justify it. You don't, placate it. You don't be like, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. You don't take care of them. You just state the fact. as calm and as cool and as neutral as possible. And then usually what in that moment, they're usually shocked and they go into freeze and you're just there for a second together. And in that moment, because you didn't attack them back, they don't have to attack you again. So that's what ends up happening. We're either attacking in our mind, we're attacking with our words, we're attacking with our looks, we're trying to be defensive, right? We're blaming the other person for being a horrible person. We're calling them names in our own mind. Instead, we want to cut through all that baloney. We want to cut through all of that back and forth and all of that fear-based behavior and all that fear-based thinking and start seeing ourselves and each other as innocent, that we're only trying to protect ourselves. We're only doing it because we're afraid and we don't know how to do it any better. We don't have the tools and the skills. So get the tools and the skills and start recognizing that all of your responses are because you're afraid of looking stupid, looking foolish, not feeling good enough, et cetera, et cetera. And when you do that, then you're going to have the wherewithal, the courage, the space to actually show up differently. And then you know what happens? Thanksgiving shows up differently. Christmas shows up differently. It's amazing. I mean, my brother-in-law has teased me mercifully for years, and I would somewhere cry or get upset or leave the room or whatever, not letting him know how I felt. But that doesn't happen anymore at all. And that's because of me, not because of them.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And, like you said, you don't need to combat it. You don't need to go back and forth. And
No.
so many times, right? We have these things we've thought we were going to say for all these years, right? So you're like,
Yes.
oh, I'm ready. I've got like so much
Yeah.
ammunition. And that's actually super volatile because either I'm going to start saying it and it's going to get bad, or I'm going to hold it all in and it's going to get really bad for me later on. But either way, it's bad.
That's right.
But you can just ask a question, or you can just state a simple fact like, hey, that really hurt. Or, hey,
or did you mean to say that?
Did you mean to say that? What do you mean by that? Just like,
what do you mean by that? Yeah.
Simple, like little things. I'm
confused.
And it breaks the pattern.
It breaks the pattern.
Because people are not used to having those patterns broken. And it's so, questions are the answer, right? Asking amazing questions will just produce such incredible results in your life. So I love that. Okay. So we're going to take a short break for 60 seconds to shout out the sponsor of the podcast. But when we come back, though, I want to go back to earlier. You were talking about how we can receive more love, be open to receive more love. And I'm curious about this because people might be listening to this and be like, oh, this is just about love. This is just about personal relationships. But this is about like every single relationship you're ever going to have in your life. And I like to talk about things personally and professionally. It applies to everything. So I want to know, how can we be open to receive more love in our lives? We'll talk about that when we come back. Are you struggling to make consistent, valuable content for yourself? Do you want to have an efficient and effective way to create content that attracts the people that you want to connect with in life, the people you want to build relationships with in business? Do you want to be the go-to authority at what you do, at what you're great at? Would it be helpful for you if you had a platform that connects you to incredible people in your industry? The kind of platform that gets you leads and lands you clients without you having to beat down anybody's door or blow up anybody's inbox. Whether you're already creating content or you're desiring to start and it's something that's been kind of burning inside of you for a while, I urge you and encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Get started right now. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
Loving this conversation, Rhonda. So good, so interesting. How can we be more open in our lives to receive love?
That's such a beautiful question, because I think that's the crux of life itself, right? To love and to be loved, and to know that we are worth loving and that we are love itself. So, the thing that stops us from believing that we are, quote unquote, worthy of love is fear. Fear is the thing that gets in the way of us being willing to say yes to love pouring at us, that gaze coming at us, those kind words coming to us. When people give us a compliment, it probably lasts for a second, but we've all heard when somebody says something, a criticism, we've all heard how much, we've all heard the sayings, we've all read the books that say, well, we'll remember that for a lifetime, right? So, where is your focus and what are you keeping track of? So I have a tool that I use in Fearless Living called acknowledgements. Today, I acknowledge myself for. And starting to include yourself in your own life, include your own needs in your own life, include your own wants in your own life, include yourself in your decisions. Because too much of the time we're making decisions or caring about other people's needs and not our own. So the tool, excuse me, I've got a little thing in my cup. I'm going to take a little sip.
That's all right. Go for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Been talking a lot today. So acknowledgements. So acknowledgements, if you are an expert at beating yourself up, this little exercise called acknowledgements is going to kill you. It's going to feel like it's going to kill you because you are going to be somebody that doesn't think that you should give yourself acknowledgements because you're going to have all the reasons why it wasn't good enough, not perfect enough, it could have been better, etc. And so you take any right away of any movement forward you make. So acknowledgements, today I acknowledge myself for is noticing any what I call stretch, risk, or dies that you're taking through the day. And that includes those stretch, risk, and dies, includes letting kindness, letting the words of affirmation, letting those moments of connection seep into your cells without you pushing them back because, oh, I don't deserve that. I'm not worthy of that. Oh, this is too mushy. This is business. I can't accept that. You don't believe it. I don't believe that. It's all of that fear-based thinking that stops us from receiving that love. So every day I invite you, anytime you're taking a stretch, a new thought, a new behavior, even if it's a little less a second, write it down. Today I acknowledge myself for deciding to believe the compliment I received about the way I drive, right? Because again, we poo-poo all the little compliments, all the little affirmations, all the little validations, all the little confirmations we receive, all the synchronicities, we dismiss them. So we got to start keeping track of those. And when we do, we start noticing that the world is a generous place. The world is a kind place. The world is a loving place. We just have to decide to look through that lens. So I really invite ourselves, each of us, to start noticing what is moving forward, what is changing. And again, just any little thought, even if it, like I said, even if it lasts a second, write it down. So don't write, you're not focusing on, well, I only lasted 1 second. No. Yeah, only lasted 1 second. Good for you. Last 1 second. Woo! You did it. 1 second. You're amazing. Because that 1 second turns into 5 seconds, turns into 10 seconds. Most of us focus on, well, I cut it off after a second. I guess I'm not good at this. I don't care if you cut it off after a second. You did it for a second. Give yourself some credit. And that's going to start opening up your eyes and helping you see through a new lens, which is going to give you a new perception of yourself in the world.
It's really good. And it's it's the simple things in life. The things are simple, like they compound on top of each other, but it's getting into a habit of accepting the simple thing and building on it and acknowledging it as being something powerful and transformative. I was working with a guy today who, says a lot of negative things about himself. And so we're working on just saying some of the positive things and also doing some of the things that he wants to do in his life on a daily basis. He feels like he has to serve everybody else all the time and he doesn't serve himself enough. So we were talking about, okay, well, this week, what are you putting into place? Like put a couple of things in there. Start with an hour this week. Go to 2 hours next week. Start with 45 minutes this week.
I'll take 5 minutes, Rob. I'll take 5 minutes, right? And then acknowledge yourself.
Yeah. And he wants to go hunting. He's like, well, that takes like 4 hours. I'm like, well, then go hunting for 4 hours. And even if you beat yourself up while hunting, still go do it. Right. Because you're going to be out there. Now you're going to have to prove the track record. Okay. So I know I was negative about doing this thing because I was missing other things that I thought I was supposed to be doing, but at least I went out and did the thing I never do, but always say I'm going to go do. And it's just those pieces.
Yeah. And, adding a step to that is, okay, when you're beating yourself up, can you stop and take a breath and look at the nature around you, right? Can you get in the present moment, right? Because beating ourselves up doesn't live if you're in the present, right? It only lives when you're thinking about the past or projecting onto the future. Yeah. So that beating yourself up in the world of fearless living, as sounds like it's true for you as well, is there's never, ever, 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 ever reason to beat yourself up or another human being. Like, that is not acceptable. That is, that is not okay. Because every time that you beat yourself up, as you know, you are validating your fears. You are locking them more into place. Now, again, you and I both know that beating yourself up is so fast and quick, you can't stop it, right? You can't stop it, while it's moving through you. But the minute that you can go, oh, the minute you can even notice that you did it and stop yourself and go, I just beat myself up. Do I want to keep doing that? Asking yourself the question, becoming aware that you're doing it. It becomes more painful, and that's good, because then it gets worse, and then you're going to be like, oh my God, I really don't want to do this anymore. It's like, good, then do some acknowledgments instead.
Yeah.
Right?
What was there a big breakthrough for you? That, I know breakthroughs are usually a million little things building up to something big, but was there something that broke finally for you that you're like, no, I've got to change this. Clearly your mess has become your message. I don't necessarily know your whole backstory, right? But the mess you were in became a message that you use now to help people.
Yeah. So I'll just tell you briefly the backstory. So we're all caught up I believe that the worst moment of your life, by the way, the most horrific experience you had, is the seed for your destiny, right? Just like you said, the mess turns into the message. And so I was 14 years old, and I grew up in a little tiny town in Upper Michigan. And my parents had recently divorced, and my father was coming over to take us to Sunday brunch. It was a big deal because, 2 adults and 3 kids, it's a lot of money, but my dad is going to take us and treat us, which is a big deal. And so my mom's putting up her beehive hairdo and her blue eyeshadow. My dad walks in the back door. Come on, kids, let's go. My 2 sisters are fighting it out in our one bathroom. And my mom and I start walking out. My sister's still in the bathroom fighting it out. And as we walk out, my dad notices it starting to rain. So he says he's got to get his coat from the car. It's a tan Naugahyde leisure suit coat, which, by the way, back then it was really hot and cool. And so my dad goes to open his trunk. My mom and I are walking out the door and back door. And I notice at the corner of my eye that he hasn't grabbed a coat, but he's grabbed a gun. And he starts screaming at my mother, "You made me do this. You made me do this." And he fires. And I start yelling, "Dad, what are you doing? Stop, Dad. What are you doing? Stop, Dad. What are you doing?" And he cocks the gun again and points it at me. And I absolutely believe I'm next. And he breathes, I breathe. He blinks, I blink. We're frozen in place. And my mother, with her last breath, literally, sees what's happening and shouts out, "No, don't." My father, realizing my mother is still alive, takes that bullet intended for me, turns towards my mother and shoots her in the abdomen. The bullet goes through her, out her back, and lands in the car horn. And for the next 20 minutes, all I hear is, "Eh." And then my father cocks the gun for a 3rd time, puts the barrel to his head, and fires. So in a matter of less than 2 minutes, I was the sole witness of watching my father murder my mother and commit suicide in front of me. Now, Rob, I don't know what you would have done, but this is what I did. I blame myself because I did nothing heroic, right? I didn't kick my father in the shins. I didn't grab the gun and wrestle it from him. I didn't even jump in front of my mother to protect her. So for the next 20 years, Rob, when you don't save your mother, you don't get to be happy. Like, that's off the table. That's off the table. So I split into 2. And I think many people can relate to this, splitting into 2. On the outside, I was fine. I'm fine. Still got straight A's, became the president of my class. I'm fine. Got full ride to college. I'm fine. But inside, self-loathing, beating myself up, low self-esteem, just really horrible opinion of myself. And it was when I got to college, I had that weight of the burden of the guilt and the shame of not saving my mother. And so I found alcohol, and alcohol numbed all those feelings. It was like, oh, this is good. And I eventually drank enough to become an alcoholic. I got 3 DUIs over the next 20 years, and I tried to kill myself 3 times. And it was that 3rd suicide attempt, Rob, that I realized something is, 1, I'm not good at killing myself. I'm not good at that. And I got to figure out another way, right? Because during those 20 years of drinking, DUIs, and suicide attempts, I was also living that split life. I was also still trying to save myself, which was good. I went to workshops. I read books. I went to therapy. I mean, I did inner child work, shaman work, you name it, I did it. I literally, if you named it, I probably did it to try to help myself, save myself, get myself through it. But in that third suicide attempt, by the way, when you try to kill yourself 3 times, they do put you in a psychiatric ward for evaluation. And when they deemed me not crazy and they sent me home, I remember getting home and realizing I have done all these things to help myself, but it has not changed my opinion of myself. I have a lot of knowledge. I have a lot of tools, but I don't think of myself differently. I still think of myself as, in my darkest moments, still think of myself as not good enough, a failure, etc., and not worthy to stay alive. So I remember with my back was to the wall, and at the wall of my little apartment, and I slid down the wall, and I said to myself, I just on the floor feeling so defeated, and I said to myself, I have to start over. What do kindergartners do? And I thought, well, they do gold stars and a calendar. So I actually got myself up, went to the market, got gold star and calendars, came home, and for the next 30 days gave myself a gold star. This is the birth of acknowledgements, by the way. The gold star for any time I did something at all good. And I'm talking anything little. I mean, we're talking about drank and didn't break anything, right? Or we're talking about, not getting drunk, right? We're talking about little tiny shifts. Like I was still, quote unquote, behaving poorly, but it wasn't as poorly as I had been, right? And I gave myself a gold star. And at the end of 30 days, I had a calendar filled with gold stars, i.e., which turned into, like I said a minute ago, acknowledgments. And I, at that moment, Rob, I had hope. I had hope that I could change, that my life could be different. Now, it took, of course, time after that, but I didn't have a suicide attempt after that. I quit drinking, et cetera, et cetera. Like my life started transforming, and I needed that hope, those acknowledgments, and that notice of anything I was doing, because I was so good at noticing what I wasn't doing, right? I was so good at myself as the girl who let her mother die, right? I was so good at blaming myself for anything around me. I was so good at self-sacrifice. I was so good at all those things. And by the way, all those things I was good at was the way I got loved, right? That's how I got love. If I self-sacrifice, then somebody's going to love me, right? If I don't exist, somebody's going to fill me up and love me, right? Make me who they want to be. So those gold stars and that tool that I already shared, acknowledgement, was the beginning of my breakthrough to become, quote unquote, who I am today. Now, again, it took time, but that was the beginning start, just shifting my focus and making different decisions about how I wanted to pay attention to myself. And that was the beginning of my unfoldment to what I do today.
Oh, wow. God bless. Number one, that story, just unbelievable. But that is it. Like changing the way you look at yourself.
Yes.
And if we
deciding to do it, right? You have to decide to do it.
Yeah, because we're in so many patterns, right? We're stuck in so many programs, and those programs are they're just running nonstop. Right. And I mean, that's how I usually look at myself. It's like, what haven't I done today? Mm-hmm. Right. That's what I usually frame around, like, what haven't I done today that I need to do? Not like, oh, look at all the great things I did today already.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's really, really good. I love that. And piling those on top of each other. And because changing that framework from all of the acknowledgments of like you said, the smallest things. I had a drink and I didn't break the glass. Like the littlest things. Yeah.
And by the way, Rob, people do this with their kids. Clients who come to me and their parents actually pick up their kids from school now and say, tell me, one good thing that you moved forward on today. Where did you have a different thought? Like they literally talk to their kids, and within days, that's what the kids want to do at the dinner table, in the evening, when they go to bed. They now are searching for ways of what they did, what they saw that was empowering, powerful, loving, etc. And so not only do it with yourself, you start noticing it with your spouse, your partner, your kids. Start acknowledging them, and then ask them to acknowledge themselves. It's a game changer.
Yeah. So good. So simple and so good. I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. I'm sure you've shared it many times. I'm sure it's powerful every time you share it. So I really appreciate that. And just the simplicity of it. I mean, that's the thing we have to remember too, is we tend to get way too complex with all the things we're trying to do. And it's just simple daily disciplines, and they're easy to do. They're also easy not to do. Like, it's easy to not do that acknowledgement, but it's also easy to do it. These things are simple, and it's changing your awareness and your attention of what you're paying attention to. So with all that being said, I want to just honor you for coming on this episode and sharing your story with us. I want people to check out more about you. They can take an assessment right on your website, learn more about you, and also check out the assessment there, fearlessliving.org/risk. What can they expect when they go there?
It's actually a course. So I'm giving you it's a course. It's the procrastination cure, right? So I've talked about stretch, risk, and die and acknowledgments. Well, this is the course. It's 3 15-minute videos, very short. And you're going to see me break down the exercise called stretch, risk, and die. And if you've got something on your plate, a dream, a plan, a goal that you want to make happen, go and watch these 15 minutes or listen to it or grab the handouts and the transcript. And you are going to see where you keep getting stuck. It's going to be very evident if you're getting stuck in stretch, risk, or die. And again, I explain it all in the course. Again, 45 minutes of your life. I invite you to do it. And then it also, at the very, very end of that third video, I actually break down the Wheel of Fear. So you're actually going to see me talk about the Wheel of Fear in more detail. So definitely go and do that. If there's something that you want to do that you're not doing, this might be a tool to support you to make more movement forward.
Amazing. I love that. fearlessliving.org/risk. And if you want to be the authority in your space and launch your platform, make sure you check me out at robzwentz.com to join the wait list today. This has been an amazing episode. Rhonda, thank you so much. Anything you want to leave the audience with before we sign off?
There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear.
Beautiful. This has been another true testimony of breakthrough. This has been the Unstuck Movement.